I spend less than 30 minutes a month to stay completely on top of my business's financials, and I run multiple seven-figure businesses. Here's how I do it. Most business owners are basically just making gut feel decisions when it comes to running their business, day to day, week to week, even month to month. They rarely utilize the financial information that's there in their business. And that's not necessarily their fault, it's because they've never been taught how to use that information. They don't know how to extract the gold out of it to be able to help them make decisions. So instead, they just essentially rely on gut information or kind of their anecdotal results of the bank account is high or the bank account is low, or these people are under pressure or not, and using those as indicators to whether we should be hiring or firing or spending more or less at a certain point in time. Most business owners do this just because they've never been shown how to use their numbers. So it's not their fault, right? They got into business because they had a skill or a passion, they were good at what they were doing, and that gut feel approach to business works in the early days when you're kind of at the startup phase. But once you've scaled to like a seven-figure business, things get vastly more complicated in terms of teams and systems and things you need to have to run a business. And the gut feel approach just doesn't work anymore. You can't rely on that gut feel approach because you're definitely, on the upside, missing great opportunities that you could be making, but on the downside, you're unaware of the risks that are building up until they come and actually hit you. And they look like things like financial crises or big bills or tax payments are just blindsiding you that you didn't see coming. Like I said, it's dangerous because you just don't know what's underlying, what's under the surface. You don't know what the problems are until they become big problems and they actually come onto your gut feel radar. Up until that point, they're kind of small simmering problems which you could easily solve if you had financial visibility, but you don't until they become a much bigger issue. So the most common cycle I see that business owners get trapped in with running off gut feel is that they use their bank balance as their only financial indicator of how well the business is performing. And the trouble with that is a bank balance is literally a roller coaster ride, full of many peaks and troughs just over an individual month. And even more so if you zoom out and look at it quarterly, like really high and really low at certain points in a quarter. The reason for that is not to do with how the business is performing, but it's just due to the different timing cycles at play within a bank account. Certain things are paid weekly, some are paid fortnightly, some are monthly, some are quarterly. And when you overlay those different timing cycles on each other, you're gonna have weeks where not much is happening and the bank balance is building up. And then you'll have those weeks where weekly, fortnightly, monthly, quarterly all land at 1 week and the bank balance goes crashing down. In real terms, this looks like the super is due the same week as the rent, same as the wages, the same as the quarterly BAS. All those things land at once and we come crashing down. And if you're a business owner who's just using the bank balance as your only financial indicator, you know, when the cash looks high, you're thinking, great, I can go and spend money, we can invest in things, yeah, we can take on that new hire. And then times when it comes crashing down and it's low, we go into that scarcity mindset and we pull back and we don't make decisions. We hold off on the things that we would be able to help us grow and scale our business. And once somebody's lived on this roller coaster ride for a certain period of time in business, unfortunately, it starts to impact them as a business owner because they've had the times where they've overspent, then they get burnt in the low period and they don't have enough cash for what they need to do, and they're stressed about making the payroll or whatever it might be. This has a lasting effect on that business owner. And these are the business owners who are very kind of anxious or nervous about the financial side of their business, and they tend to pull back and really play the game conservatively because they remember that time they came up short once before and got burnt. And so it really impacts the way that they're playing out in their business. If you're someone who thinks the gut feel approach is fine, like I said, yes, it's fine if you just want mediocre results, run of the mill, going through the middle, because that's all it's going to do for you. What it's not going to do is take care of both the upside and the downside risk that's there. So if we talk about the downside risk, if you're just running on gut feel, the risks that are occurring in business, which happen every day, that's part of the nature of being a business owner, is there a risk? Things you just don't see coming. That's what a risk is. Those things that you didn't see coming are magnified when you're not looking at your financials. You don't see the risks there until they've built up to a certain point in time when they become such big problems like, uh-oh, we can't pay for something, or we've run out of money, or we're blindsided by that big bill we never saw coming. Those are the downside risks. And like I said, they'll keep you trapped mentally as a business owner because you'll be scared of those risks when you can't see them coming. Whereas if you had great financial visibility, you can see those risks far in advance and before anything becomes too big. Like another example would be, let's say a cost has grown significantly within your business, cost of production, whatever it is you're making, or a cost of sale. And you don't necessarily see that until it comes time to pay the bills and where things are getting a bit tighter, the margins are getting tighter, and we're not really sure why that is. When you've got great financial visibility, you can see those changes very early on and you can adapt and course correct in your own business and your pricing much earlier. But then let's talk about the upside missed opportunity as well. If you're running on gut feel and you're not utilizing your numbers, this means you're missing out on making great upside decisions that you could do if you had full financial visibility. And this is the one that I think is the real, I don't want to say silent killer, but where most business owners actually get it wrong out there. Because a simple example, if you're a business owner that's a business which is a seven-figure business doing $1 million, 1% is worth $10,000 a year to you. Now, I promise you, if you're not looking at your financials, there will be 1%ers that you are missing many, many places within your business. And it only takes a handful of these before it's 5%, a few 1%ers here and there, 5 or even 10%. And 5 or 10% of $1 million business, we're talking about $50,000 to $100,000 a year. And that's per year. We know that business is not a short-term game, it's a long-term pursuit. You're in business for 5 to 10 years. So we could take that $50,000 or $10,000 you're potentially missing out on every year and multiply that for another 10 years. And all of a sudden, that's an extra $1 million you could have made out of your business over a 10-year journey as a business owner who's actually utilizing your numbers. And this is absolutely not about you being a bad business owner. This is just someone who hasn't yet got a great financial system embedded in their business. Like I said earlier, that comes about because people got into business because they're passionate about the skill or the craft or the service that their business does. They didn't do it to become an accountant and look at financials all day, and so they tend to push that stuff aside and think it's too hard. But once your business has grown to 7 figures plus, if you're not yet fully utilizing your numbers and feeling confident, I promise you, you are missing out on so many upside opportunities in your business. And by all means, it doesn't mean you're a bad business owner. It just means that you haven't yet learned how to utilize the numbers. And it's just the same, whatever your business does, whatever your skill or service your business does, if I came along to that business and owned it, I couldn't do what you do just as well as you do. There's skills that we haven't yet learned as a business owner that we need to learn along the way. Things like sales and marketing and leadership, and all of these things are certain skills we need to learn along the way. But as a 7-figure business owner, finance, and more importantly, how to actually use your numbers to make great decisions is such an amazing skill for you to invest in learning, because it will pay off in absolute massive dividends over the long term as a business owner. So I think the gut feel approach to finance does work if you're in that kind of 0 to 250, 300K mark, because in those early days, things are scrappy. And if I'm talking to somebody who's interested to, want to learn how to use numbers like I do, why they're a great asset to everybody, if someone's in that early stages and they're wearing all the hats, I'd probably recommend at that point in time to really try and nail their offer, nail their sales, and just get themselves to that 200-300K per annum mark. Once you're going beyond that, absolutely you need to start utilizing your numbers. And as your business grows and scales from that level to the 7-figure mark, to the $1 million business, absolutely you need to learn how to master your numbers along that journey. And if we've got to 7 figures and beyond, and we're still not using the numbers, then like I said, there's so much missed opportunity in your business. I promise you, just by looking at your business under the framework that we teach people to look at their numbers, how to make them really practical and useful and spot the opportunities for improvement. There's so much opportunity for you to be making money. And if we're still carrying on utilizing the gut feel at that approach, at that point in time, we're absolutely missing out on opportunities, but we're also flirting with some big risks that are in the background once a business is of that size and scale. Things like, what equipment should I invest in? Should I take on new hires? Should I increase my marketing spend? These kind of things are decisions that business owners who are just using gut feel tend to not dive into, and maybe as quickly as they should, because they're scared of the costs of running those. Can we afford to pay those people, or equipment or marketing until it gets up to speed? That's on one side, or they're the other end of the side and they start to spend on all these things and they just don't have enough cash to do that kind of stuff, and they put themselves at risk. They're not sure how much they can invest to grow their business in proportion to the rest of their business. Like, what is a healthy size investment or a healthy size risk here to go and invest to grow our business? And without that financial clarity, it just makes the decision so much harder. So typically, on one side, really slows people down from making the decisions they should be making, or at the other end of the scale, people make decisions where they overextend themselves and they get themselves into trouble because they didn't have the clarity on that end of the scale as well. The simple analogy to explain like running your business on gut feel instead of financials, it's like going for a really long drive in your car without having any instruments to display. We've got no fuel tank, we've got no speedo, we've got no sat nav, we're just going on complete gut feel. And of course, you can start the drive based on gut feel and everything's totally fine. But the longer the drive goes on, you start to worry. How much fuel is in the tank? Am I going to run out before I get there? Am I traveling the right speed? Am I even taking the right turns, the right directions to where I want to get to? And the longer things go on, the more these kind of potential risks are building up in the background of your business here, and you're potentially going the long way rather than a great shortcut. You're potentially traveling too fast or too slow to be able to get there. You just don't know what kind of risks are under the surface. Is the car overheating? Is it running? Is the fuel light on? You have no idea. This is what it's like to be running a business on gut feel instead of utilizing your financials. So if you're a business owner and you want to get involved in the numbers, but they do feel too confusing, too overwhelming, there's too much jargon, there's so much to learn there, it's just a big overwhelming kind of scary area for you. I have a simple 3-step approach for people to be able to get the most out of their numbers. And of these 3 steps, if you just focus on step number 1, it'll naturally lead to step number 2 and number 3 happening. So if you're a business owner who wants to be able to use your numbers to make great decisions to scale profitability and improve cash flow, I've got a simple 3-step approach to be able to do that for you. And what happens with this approach is all you need to do is focus on taking step number 1, because step number 1 will naturally lead you to where you want to go. So I've got this simple model here which details it out. What we're chasing is great decisions for growth at the top. Where I need you to start is down the bottom. And all we need to do is you need to be able to simplify your numbers, because once you simplify your numbers down, I'm talking about not looking at those big overwhelming financial reports, the P&Ls and the balance sheets that come out of your Xero or QuickBooks, they're just too long and too much information. If we focus on simplifying them down, what happens is you get clarity. It becomes so much easier to look at your numbers and understand what's going on. Once you have that clarity, it becomes so much easier for you to know your numbers. And this is what people want, right? They want to know their numbers, and the reason why they want to know their numbers is because it gives them confidence, because they can actually read the figures, they can see what's happening in their business, they can see what's performing and what's not performing and how fast they're traveling. And once you've got that level of confidence about your financials, what actually happens, and this is the best part, is you start to use your numbers. You start to use your numbers to make great decisions. And it's when we're making great decisions in business that leads our business to higher profits, better cash flow, the outcomes that we're after. So we want the growth. All we need to do is focus on step 1, simplifying your numbers, and it's naturally going to lead you to where you want to get to. I think there's a misconception there that people think it must take a long time to look at your financials all the time and run your business by your financials. In honest truth, it doesn't. I honestly spend about 30 minutes per month on my financials. It's actually a really quick process, but it enables me to see exactly how the business is performing and where the opportunities are to improve, what's happening with my profitability, like what's my financial position and where is my profit going, and I've got visibility over my cash flow. So I can straight away answer those simple questions. Am I going to run out of money? Are there any financial pressures coming? Or if I'm growing the business, do I have enough cash to support the strategies that I'm pursuing? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pop on the screen here a little worksheet that I work through with my clients, explaining to them what the process is that I do with my financials every single month. So on a monthly basis, you want to stay on top of the 3 key areas. This is your profitability, your financial position, which is your balance sheet, and your cash flow. But you don't want to be looking at those long, boring, overwhelming financial statements to do it. You need to set up a system which delivers you the financial information in a really quick, visual, color-coded way so that it's super simple and easy for you to see what's going on within your business. But let's just focus straight away. So we said the 3 parts were the P&L for profitability. It's your balance sheet, which is going to teach you all about your financial position, and it's your cash flow. These are the 3 key sets of numbers. So if we just focus on the profitability for a moment, like I said, we don't want to look at those long, boring financial statements, which are just too much information and set up in a way that's not useful. Instead, whenever I'm looking at a business's P&L or its profitability, I want to understand the profit formula for that business. And for me, that's looking at the individual parts which make up how a business is performing profit-wise. So we've got to break that into the 2 components straight away. We're talking about the income and the expenses. They're the 2 sides of the profit equation. But specifically for me, I'm looking at what is the number of transactions we're doing, what's the price, and therefore, what is my income for the month? I want to understand the drivers that are driving income. And then when I'm looking at the expenses, I'm looking at these 5 categories of expenses that I'm always referring to, what I call the business drivers. This is the cost of sales, the team cost, what I'm investing in marketing and growth for the business, my overheads, and property, which is also an important category to look at on its own right if you're a bricks and mortar business. And obviously, income minus expenses gives us our profit result for the month. So instead of just looking at the P&L and looking at the bottom to see what the profit is, I'm able to see the maths which is taking place, or the different parts of my business that have resulted in that profit. Then what I'm doing, and I do this every month, is I then compare it to my target. So I'm comparing the actuals to the target. So I'm looking at what was my income drivers, my 5 different types of costs, and again, what was the profit that I was targeting to have for the business. And when I look at my profitability for the month, like this, like a formula, compared to the target formula I'm aiming for, what I'm clearly able to see is, okay, we had a great month on income, we were winning, price was correct, volume was right, we got the income target we wanted to achieve. We could see that our costs of sales were on plan. Marketing, maybe we underspent on marketing, and so I've got a question mark about that. The overheads and the rent were fine, but I can clearly see there's a big difference in my team costs for the month, just as an example. This enables me to see, okay, I hit this target here, but I didn't reach my target. And why was that? I'm able to clearly, within a matter of seconds, pinpoint clearly which part of the business was over or under versus my expectations in terms of reaching profitability. So that's what I'm doing when I'm looking at my P&L each month. I'm not just looking at the results as, okay, that's what happened, useful information to know. Instead, I'm looking at it like a formula that drives the profitability that I want to see, and I'm comparing it against the target profitability and the various inputs that make that up that I wanted to see. Then when I look at the balance sheet, a balance sheet answers 2 simple questions for me. One, it tells me, yes, it's about financial position, but where is that money? What is my financial position actually made up? That financial position is made up of 4 key numbers to me. It's how much cash flow is tied up in the business. This is the net working capital. How much of my cash or capital is tied up in long-term assets that I can't really use in day-to-day cash flow of the business? What do I have by way of finance and loans that I owe to the banks or equipment finances? And then there's also my owner or related party companies related. Have I taken money in or out of the business as the owner? Or just looking at a balance sheet as these simple 4 numbers tells me pretty quickly the financial position of the business, but where is the money actually tied up? It kind of answers the question, show me the money. But then what I do is I also always compare the balance sheet from last month to my balance sheet this month. So my financial position from last month to this month, because what happens, a balance sheet moves from one period to the next, either up or down, based on how much profit we made in the trading that's occurred in between. So looking at a balance sheet like this helps me to answer straight away, where did my profit go? Because the profit that you made on the P&L is going to live here as the movement from one balance sheet to the next. And so this helps me to see the question, where did the profit go? If a business made profit, did it stay in the cash flow of the business, or did it go outside of the business? Was it used to pay down debt? Did the owners take it out of the business? Did they invest it into long-term assets? And this helps me to get a clear snapshot of not only how the business is performing from a trading perspective, but where is the money going? Where is the profit going? Are there profit leaks, or are we retaining the profit within the business? And again, all of this, when I'm looking at my own business financials, this is less than 5 minutes. When I'm training my clients how to do this, we're doing it in under 30 minutes. This becomes a really quick process, but you can see how powerful it is to know exactly how business is performing and where is the money actually going. And then when it comes to the cash flow, so we said there was the 3 different elements here. There was P&L, balance sheet, and then there's cash flow. And then the thing about cash flow is we need to be forward looking. Let me show you my cash flow forecast as a quick example. This is just a little screenshot of one of mine here. The thing about our cash flow forecast is we need to be forward looking. We need to be always looking at the future with our cash flow. And a cash flow forecast needs to answer 2 questions for me. First of all, am I gonna run out of money? Cash is such a vital asset in a business. It's like the blood pulse in your body. You've got to make sure you've got a pulse to stay alive. So same with the cash flow, we always want to have a forward-looking vision on our cash, and we want to be seeing what are the low points. Are there any risks? Are we close to running out of money, or are we going to be okay? So that's the first thing I'm doing with cash flow. I want to look to the future and see what my low point actually is. And then the second question a cash flow does for me is it answers the question, do I have enough cash or resources to support me in whatever it is that I'm focusing on to grow and scale my business? So if we're looking at our profitability and we've identified the area we need to improve, we've come up with a strategy. It might look like hiring some new team members or investing in some new training or whatever that might be. we need to be able to have a look at our cash flow and make sure we can afford that investment at the same time. And so that's what the third part here is, just looking at cash flow, is I'm really just looking to the future to get a clear understanding of what's my average cash over the coming weeks, and what's the low point, what are the risks here. And this is the three-step process of checking in on your profitability, your financial position, and your cash flow. And this is the rhythm that I want everybody to be making sure they're checking in on, just on a monthly basis. And honestly, when you become proficient at this is less than a 30-minute job, and it keeps you in touch with your financials in a way that is really empowering for you as a business owner to be able to make great decisions every step of the way, daily, weekly, monthly in your business, because you've got your finger on the pulse. You know how it's performing and where it's heading. So as you can see, running your business utilizing your financials rather than gut feel doesn't have to be overwhelming for you as a business owner, but it's incredibly empowering on one hand, and it's incredibly rewarding on another hand, because this is how you maximize the profitability and cash flow out of your business. If you'd like to see the full roadmap of how to get this system in place in your business, you know, what are the 4 tools that I want to use and how we actually use them at what intervals and what they actually do for your business, I've made another training all about that here on my YouTube, and I'll just put a link for it below or after this video.